Where are we off to?
Kennedy Space Center.
Yep. Go see some rockets. I'm excited to go see some rockets. They open in 5 minutes. We have our tickets and our VIP passes and all that kind of stuff.
We're gonna go fly away. Bye.
Probably. They have a little thing. So I don't know how far. Well, I'll have to put in how far we are. But I'm excited. We got in our truck. No scratches. The windows are pretty disgusting. And it's hot outside because my glasses are fogging up, but we'll go.
In the moon. Well, if you look to the front left of the bus, you'll find out. That is called, at the time it was called the Vertical Assembly Building, and that's where we built our 363-foot tall Saturn V moon rocket, which in December of 1968 we were planning to launch people for the first time with Apollo 8. Very rough year. There had been 2 major assassinations. The Vietnam War was going on. So when they launched that mission and that orbited the moon, and that'll help you remember what it was about, Apollo 8 orbited the moon, and just think of a figure 8. They actually had a reading near Christmas time, reading from the book of Genesis. They had a prayer for the people on Earth. Later, somebody wrote a telegram to NASA saying the Apollo 8 mission saved 1968. Well, how do we build a rocket big enough to send people to the moon? That building has 4 giant rooms called high bays. 3 of them were used for building our Saturn V's. One of them was a storage area. But those doors are still the tallest doors in the world, 456 feet tall. It takes 45 minutes for them to open all the way. The sliders slide just like a deck of cards up to the top. They can also act independently. The 4 on the bottom open horizontally. So yeah, that building is 526 feet tall. 52 stories tall. Would be 53 stories, but that's another story. But anyway, so yeah, I know, right? And by the way, that is not the world's largest propane tank for a cookout. That is a water tank. We use that inside the VAB to help calibrate the cranes inside that help lift up the rocket parts. But yeah, that building was designed for the Saturn V. Took 3 years to build. It's on 8 acres of land. Floors 8 feet thick. They love to plan here. Instead of just coming out and putting concrete down and hoping for the best, they put 4,225 16-inch steel pipes to bedrock before they laid put the foundation in here. That's probably why after decades we can still use this. But we used this to build all of the Saturn V's that took people to the moon. 30 years worth of space shuttles were also put together in that building. Actually, in the space shuttle era, we renamed it the Vehicle Assembly Building because you don't stack a space shuttle vertically like you do a Saturn V rocket. But what we would do toward the end of the tour, you're going to be heading toward the Apollo Saturn V Center. You're going to see a couple of those crawler transporters. We lifted up the crawler transporter, put a mobile launcher on it, put a tower on it outside the building, brought it into those high bays, put the Saturn V rocket on it vertically, and then carried it out to the launch pad. To the left of the bus, you've got, a lot of people want to know where are the buttons that get pushed to launch the rocket. That's it. That's called the Launch Control Center. That's got the computers that we fire the rockets from. The one, firing room closest to the VAB is firing room 1, which, by the way, we used recently, last November, for launching Artemis 1. Then center right is firing room 2, center left is firing room 3, closest to the bus is firing room 4, where a lot of the space shuttle missions, including the last one, were launched from. Now, guys, exciting stuff. If you look to the left, the rear of the bus at the VAB, the door open is open in front of High Bay 3. That is the high bay where we put together the Space Launch System rocket that launched last November 16th, the first Artemis mission. It had no people aboard, but it went around the moon. It was exciting. They're going to be putting together in that high bay, it's so huge, it straddles both sides of that crawlerway. Now the crawler has big treads, almost looks like a tank. Each shoe on those treads weighs a ton, so that'll give you an idea how big it is. But the crawler, with the rocket and so on, has to be able to, the crawlerway has to withstand that. As I understand it, it can take up to about 28 million pounds. But if you look to the left, you'll look at the crawlerway, see how it's indented into those stones. The crawlerway is covered with what's called Tennessee River rock. And that is a special kind of rock that gives traction to those treads and helps the crawler move. Another cool thing about the Tennessee River rock is it doesn't spark when it crushes. Who wants no sparks under their rockets, right? So the crawler weighs about 7 to 8 feet thick, and it took about 6 to 7 hours for the crawler to bring the Saturn V or the shuttle from the VAB to pad 39A, 7 to 8 hours to take those two type rockets to 39B, and 10 hours to take the Space Launch System there. Why did it take so long? Well, 2 reasons. First of all, the crawler is a little bit on the slow side. Now, to be fair, with nothing on it, it can top out to a top. Yesterday morning's launch of the Falcon Heavy went from. If you saw that, that is where that launched from. 3 Falcon 9s strapped together. By the way, back at the main campus, in the Gateway building, we have a Falcon 9 rocket hanging from the ceiling. That is real. That's not a model. And that was one of the boosters for the first Falcon Heavy launch. That had Elon Musk's Midnight Cherry Red Tesla convertible in the payload bay. Well, that's a real one of those boosters. They launched them all from this launch pad, pad 39A. SpaceX started a 20-year lease there in 2014. You know, Elon Musk runs SpaceX, owns SpaceX. He has indicated that he wants to die on Mars and not from impact. So he's going to do a lot of deep space stuff from there. Launch pads. Also, Port Canaveral, where the cruise ships launch from, and Cocoa Beach and Cape Canaveral on the beach are also great places to watch launches from. All right, coming up to the right of the bus, there's a tented area. If you look inside there to the right, you will see what looks like a Dragon spacecraft. We believe that might be a test article. That is a means of testing out the Dragon, but that is used by SpaceX, I'm sure, to test out their... Also, guys, I do want to apologize. I was going to show you this big beige white building, but they stuck a rocket in front of it, and now I cannot show you the building unsullied. My apologies. Yeah, so hopefully they will not be so rude next time. But yeah, this is an actual Falcon 9 rocket. Remember that multi-wheeled vehicle I was telling you about with the half-moon structures that keep it on? So that'll give you an idea. But yeah, Falcon 9s put out about 1.7 million pounds of thrust, which is about the same as a Saturn 1B. and we use them over and over and over again. If they land in the ocean, they don't actually land in the ocean, they land on unmanned drone ships. But then this vehicle here, the white girderish type vehicle, is how they transport it from one place to another. All right, so looking up on the launch pad itself, you see the white girder with the pinchers. That goes down those railroad tracks into this building called the Horizontal Integration Facility, and then they put the rocket on it horizontally, go up that launch pad, and then the white girder device with the pinchers earns its nickname because that's called the strong back. They lift the rocket from horizontal to vertical and put it on to get it ready for launch at that point. But yeah, that launch pad has been used for numerous missions recently, actually, and will continue to do so. And the fixed service structure is still being used to get astronauts up to that access arm. Look at the white access arm for a moment. The left side of it has a black rectangle. That is, oddly enough, called the White Room. That folds up against the Dragon spacecraft. And again, astronauts go up the elevator, walk across, get through. In that White Room, technicians help them get the rest prepared to get into the spacecraft, and then it folds away. Do you see the cables coming down on the left side of the fixed service structure? Those are where the crew in an emergency could get in baskets and slide down, get into armored personnel carriers that had firefighters in them that the astronauts were trained to drive, and then go into a safe bunker. That launch pad and pad 39B were designed for the launch of a Saturn V moon rocket, so it's super powerfully built. In fact, the flame trench on it is about 1.5 football fields in length, a little over 500 feet, lined with a special kind of volcanic concrete called fondue fire that can take super high temperatures. Now, in addition, of course, to SpaceX launching Falcon 9s and Falcon Heavies from this launch pad, they plan eventually to launch what they call the Starship. And the Starship, of course, is going to be super powerful, 16.5 million pounds of thrust. Well, do you see that tower there with the pinchers on the bottom and those gray legs? Could we slow down just a tiny bit here, Jody? Just a tiny bit. Those gray legs are the bottom of the launch pad that they were going to hopefully launch from there. They'll have a sprinkler head on it, looks like. It's actually the launch pad that it'll spew out water. And those pinchers can not only lift up the first stage, put it on the launch pad, but then also will lift up the second stage, the Starship itself, and put it on. By the way, first, whenever you want to keep going, that would be awesome. First and second stage are reusable, and those pincher arms will actually catch.
Look at the vehicle assembly bay right there. That's so cool. 2006, that was the last shuttle launch I had ever seen. That's so cool.
To be deafened. It actually might cause you some serious damage. So the cameras, as I mentioned on the bus, were not manned for the Saturn V rockets. They had generators that powered them. Well, the rockets were so powerful that one of the first ones we launched, I think it was Apollo 4, shook the generator so hard that the gas formed up and killed the generator. So, to protect the generator from the vibrations of the launcher, we built that sandbag structure that was the arch all the way over. I mean, we've had a hurricane or two or more. Yeah, when I have Polish guests,
No problem.
Gather up around here, if you will, and we'll explain what you're looking at. That's cool. All right. So this would be, again, attached to the fixed service structure that you saw earlier on pad 39A. And it would be rotated around to where this part would be right up against the shuttle orbiter. We're going to wait just a couple more minutes, get a couple more people coming out. Opening for the orbiter probably about here. Inside there would be technicians that would help the astronauts prepare to get onto the orbiter. They would already have their pumpkin suits on, their orange pressure suits, but they wouldn't have their helmets, they wouldn't have their backpacks on, and the technicians would help them get ready, and then they'd help them get into the orbiter. 7.5 minutes before launch, we would move this out of the way, just like the crew access arm is right now on pad 39A. We'll move it out of the way to get it out of the way of the launching orbiter, launching shuttle. However, it was closer to the launch, 7.5 minutes, just in case something bad happened where you had to get the astronauts off. So you have walked where most of the shuttle astronauts walked. At the end of our tour, you're going to go to the Apollo Saturn V Center and all sorts of amazing things. Well, on the nose end of there is a tribute to the Apollo 1 astronauts that we lost in 1967, January 1967. When you're done with that, you'll walk across part of an orange access arm. The rest of that access arm is on the second floor of the gift shop back at the main campus. But that is the real access arm that Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins walked across to get to their Apollo 11 spacecraft. So you'll be able to walk across this launch of the crew access arm for the Apollo 11 mission, and you've
When I was a kid, I used to dream about flying through space. Every week on TV, I'd watch my heroes as they jumped into rocket ships and took to the stars. And I wanted to be like them. They had courage, imagination, and no problem ever stood in their way for long. You know, in the end, when we actually did send men into space, it turned out that those were exactly the qualities it took. I'm John Hudson. This is pad 39 of the Kennedy Space Center. I was a launch controller here when from this very spot, man took off to fly to the moon. It was a journey that began 12 years before that rocket ever left the ground. And it started on the other side of the world. Back then, we were one of two superpowers that always seemed to be on the edge of a terrible war. In 1957, the Soviet Union launched the first ever man-made satellite into Earth orbit. They called it Sputnik, which means traveling companion. And in a world where peace hung in a delicate balance, it seemed to be a dangerous advantage. Every ham radio operator in America could hear it beeping. People were afraid. Were the Soviets looking down on us, watching us? If they could make a satellite pass over our cities, could they do the same with a bomb? Our own space program kicked into high gear, and less than 2 months later, we were ready to launch our own satellite. The space race, and we were running a distant second. In 1961, we fell even further behind. Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first man into space, circling the world in just 89 minutes. We had our own astronauts, and they were eager and ready to take the big ride. But our manned space program couldn't seem to get off the ground. We stuck with it, and on May 5th, 1961, things finally started going right. Astronaut Alan Shepard took his ship Freedom 7 6.5 miles into space. America had its first space hero. Just a few days later, our space program received a new challenge. But this this one did not come from the Soviet Union. It came from our young president. In one inspiring moment, he changed the mission from one based in fear of the present to one of hope for the future.
But why some say the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
We hadn't been more than 16 minutes into space, and now we were going to the moon. We would have to design a rocket the size of a 36-story office building, put it together with precision on a microscope, and accelerate it to the speed of a bullet. Then we would have to guide it to a moving target 250,000 miles away. Many people thought it was an impossible dream, but 400,000 of us set about making that dream a reality. It would be the longest, most hazardous voyage that any man had dared to attempt. But step by step, mission by mission, we orbited the Earth, perfecting the skills and technologies we would need on this incredible journey. Our astronauts practiced maneuvering, docking, and the 1,000 other tasks that would comprise the moon mission. We created new alloys, lighter and stronger than anything seen before. We designed communication systems that would be reliable over the vast distances. And behind it all, we tried to perfect the rocket that would be powerful enough to punch out of Earth orbit and take us to the moon. One day, however, the dream of flying to the moon almost slipped away. It was January 27th, 1967. Astronauts Virgil Gus Grissom, Edward White, and Roger Chaffee were on board Apollo 1 for a plugs-out test, a full-scale dress rehearsal for the actual launch. Suddenly it happened. There was a fire in the capsule. 3 men whose lives had been in our hands were lost.
Surely the opening vistas of space promise high costs and hardships, as well as high reward. But this country of the United States was not built by those who waited and rested and wished to look behind them.
After Apollo 1, some thought we'd failed, and that the moon was out of our reach. But we owed it to those men, to learn from their sacrifice, and to carry on. We started taking the Apollo vehicle apart, piece by piece. Was the design flawed? Had safety been compromised? Tough questions. And we spent 1.5 years redesigning the spacecraft so that no astronaut's life would ever be at risk because we overlooked something or because we could have done something better. A moon rocket is 91% high explosive, and it goes into the most unforgiving, hazardous environment there is. We could never make it risk-free, and the men who flew them knew that. We didn't send men into space again until Apollo 7 orbited the Earth testing some of the new designs. When everything worked perfectly, the decision was made. The next mission would travel to the moon. It was mankind's destiny to leave the shores of our planet behind and strike out across the vast ocean of space. In the great span of our history, now is the time that we could. Now is the time that we would. We stood on the eve of the longest, most dangerous journey that any man had ever undertaken. And it would be taken by Frank Borman, James Lovell, and William Anders, the crew of Apollo 8. Through those doors, you'll find the firing room, launch control, just as it was on December 21st, 1968.
Please gather all of your belongings.
This is the firing room, launch control for the Apollo missions. This is not a mock-up. These are the very consoles we sat at when men first took off to fly to the moon. The tragedy of Apollo 1 had put us a year and a half behind. We were making up for it in one big leap. And we were doing it with a rocket that no man had ever flown before. It was a few days before Christmas, 1968, when Apollo 8 sat on the pad. She was the first of a new kind, a moon rocket. This was the Phoenix, risen from the ashes of Apollo 1. The first Apollo crew did not die in vain. This was to be their testament. "36 stories high, she had been fully fueled throughout the night. The liquid oxygen in her tanks caused ice to form on the outside of the craft. The extreme temperature differences between the air and the sub-zero fuel caused the metal skin of the rocket to expand and contract. Everyone who was on the pad agreed. It was as though the rocket was alive, breathing, straining at the leash. Earlier in the morning, astronauts Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and Bill Anders had made their final preparations before taking that long ride up to the waiting spacecraft. The minimum safe distance from a Saturn V to liftoff was 3 miles. The reason was simple. When fully fueled, the rocket contained the explosive power of an atomic bomb. As the clock counted down, the astronauts and all of us in launch control went through the pre-flight checks. Our hands on the controls of the most powerful, most complex machine ever built. It had over 2 million separate systems. And to bring these men back alive, everything had to work perfectly. Each individual system had been tested, but what we didn't know was how they would perform when all 2 million began to work together. That moment would come when the countdown clock reached 0. If a maneuvering thruster failed, if communications broke down, if navigation was off by 1 degree, if any piece of the miles of wiring, circuits, relays, or valves was defective, Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and Bill Anders would pay with their lives. As they sat waiting for launch on that chill December morning, these 3 astronauts were back to what they had always been, test pilots. You are now in the final minutes before the launch of Apollo 8, right here where it actually happened. Mankind is about to leave his planet behind and journey to another. It is one of those rare moments when history is not being made, destiny is being embraced.
This is launch control, T-minus 3 minutes and counting. We have completed our communications checks with the Apollo 8 astronauts in the cabin, and communications are go. During this period, once we do get the firing command, the various tanks within the 3 stages of the Saturn V launch vehicle begin to pressurize. We have firing command. The firing command is in. We are now on the automatic sequence, T-minus 2 minutes, 20 seconds, and counting. it indicates that all aspects are ready. Instrument readiness ready, spacecraft ready, final check of the emergency detection system, that ready light also on. First stage preparations are completed.
Okay. We're on. Ready to go to Conway. And by water. Okay, you're on. All systems go.
1 minute 45 seconds and counting. The first stage liquid oxygen tank has been pressurized and the pressure is still building up. Coming up in 90 seconds, mark T-minus 90 seconds and counting. The Apollo 8 crew standing by, spacecraft commander Frank Warner, chin level, Bill Anders. We now report that the liquid hydrogen tank in the third stage is pressurized. 1 minute 15 seconds. All third stage propellants pressurized at this time as we come up on the 60-second mark on the flight to the moon. T-minus 60 seconds and counting. The vehicle now is completely pressurized. We're coming up on a power transfer shortly. We have the power transfer. We're now on the flight batteries within the launch vehicle. Final reports coming from Frank Borman at this time. Final look at the switch list aboard for the spacecraft. 20 seconds, all aspects. We are still low at this time. T-minus 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. The engines are on. 4, 3.
crazy. Oh wait, what's this flag? Oh, it's a replica of the one that's up there. Oh wow, all the gray is from the moon. It's Alan Shepard's spacesuit. That's awesome. 1969.
This is the first time.
Wow.
What is that?
These are from 1960.
That's awesome. Look at the flight plan.
Houston, over. Houston, Columbia, read your last clear, how many? Right, 5, Mike, how did it go, over? Listen, babe, everything's going just swimmingly. Beautiful. Great, we're standing by for Eagle. Okay, he's coming along. Copy out. Flight controllers, we're off to a good start, hateful. AOS map. Roger, AOS map. Houston, Eagle, how do you read? 5, Eagle, we're standing by for your burn report, over. Roger, the burn was on fine.
As soon as the eagle reappears, things begin to go wrong. Radio communications break down. Messages to Eagle must be relayed through Mike Collins aboard the command module Columbia. Throughout the crucial final checks, contact with the Eagle keeps dropping out. And Flight Director Gene Kranz inches closer to aborting the mission.
Here we got data back. Radar flight looks good.
With the vital computer links temporarily holding, the moment of decision is now.
Okay, all flight controllers, don't go for landing. Retro. Go, I don't go. I go. Control. Go. Telcom. Go. ESP. Go. Ecom. Go. Surgeon. Go. Telcom, we're go for landing. We don't get that you're go for landing, over. Roger, say go for landing. 1, 0.
Hurtling toward the moon at 3,800 miles per hour, Neil Armstrong notices his checkpoints are all appearing too soon. This means a serious navigation error.
You think you're loaded up long downrange?
At these speeds, 3 seconds long means missing the safe landing zone by 3 miles. Suddenly, the computer starts firing the maneuvering thrusters, jolting the ship back and forth. This has happened in simulations, but never this much, never this violent. The smooth descent is becoming a bumpy ride. Before that is fixed, a problem with the onboard computer.
1202 alarm.
The astronauts have rehearsed for thousands of possible malfunctions, but not this one. It had been considered too unlikely. Seconds seem like hours as everyone struggles to remember the meaning of a 1202 program alarm. The deadline to safely abort is vanishing fast.
Look at the reading on the 1202 program alarm.
1202 means the Eagle's onboard computer is overloading. This means Houston is blind, unable to make navigation corrections or interpret the data coming from Eagle's computer. Armstrong and Aldrin are on their own. Mission Control decides they can go ahead. If the data link doesn't fail again. 1,000 feet, and Neil Armstrong can see that the computer is proposing to put them down in a dangerous place. That landing site is full of boulders. If they land there, they will never take off again. At 350 feet, Armstrong ignores his computer navigation and veers away from the rocky landing site with no time to explain to Mission Control.
Okay, I'll flight controller, hang tight.
In Mission Control, everybody is stunned. At 300 feet, the Eagle has left its flight plan and taken off at full speed across the face of the moon.
Eagle Houston is descent to fuel. Monitor, over.
90 seconds of fuel remaining. Now less than 200 feet, and the Eagle is too low to safely abort back into orbit. They call this part of the flight plan Dead Man's Curve.
No memo.
All that's left for Mission Control is to read off the fuel remaining in seconds.
60 seconds.
The entire moon landing has come down to 2 men and 1 minute.
Forward. Bring seat down, 2.5. And now 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Lights on. Down 2.5. Forward. 30 feet, 2.5 down. Face down. 4 forward. 4 forward, drift to the right though. Down 1/2. Contact light. Okay, engine stop. Tranquility Base, the Eagle has landed. Rocket Tranquility, we copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
A short time later, history is made again.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
For one incredible moment, we are one people with one history, watching our destiny unfold.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for man.
It was a moment shared by an entire world.
Dear man from the planet Earth, first set foot upon the earth, became indeed for all mankind.
With these first steps, mankind stood on the highest ground, and we saw our planet as our home port in the endless ocean of space.
There was something which was surprising to me. That occurred as I was standing on the surface. Just after we had landed, I'd gone down, standing on the surface and looking at planet Earth for the first time. Seeing the beauty, seeing the finiteness of it, the limits of it. Realizing what a shame it was that people were confronting each other on that planet without realizing what it was doing to the planet. It was a very emotional moment for me. I actually shed a couple of tears. Something totally unexpected.
There's a cafe over there too. Wow, that looks fake. It's real because we were told it was real, but it looks fake. Wow. There's the Orion capsule. there's the Boeing Starlink too. Oh, look at their meals. Portable water.
There's a cookie.
Portable water. This is what they sleep in. Science.
Plant strips.
Look, it's a food tire. Look. Look at the alphabet food.
Those are the spacesuits.
Totally heard over the years in technology.
Wow. Wow, look at that. That's crazy. So much more room. What? Oh my God. You'd never know. That's insane. Oh, I got dizzy. Look at that thing. Now, I don't know what this is. Look at that. From this angle. It's freaking crazy. Oh, it's a dream chaser. Oh, it transports crew and cargo to the ISS. Low Earth orbit destination, including the ISS. Just transports cargo. Oh. And people. That thing is insane.